January 24th, 2020. What's up, guys? I just want to take a couple minutes, hit a few articles, keep us healthy, and just stay on track with paying attention to our environment and what keeps us healthy and strong and nutritionally fit, and our immune system's able to fight influenza or coronavirus or any other disease that's out there that we're going to face, regardless of whether a vaccine exists or not. All right, so let's head on over to the internet of all things. Okay. So here's an article that came up today. Hopefully you guys all saw it. Bayer discusses settling Roundup claims for $10 billion. Well, if there wasn't validity to Roundup causes cancer, in no way would they be pulling $10 billion to settle claims. So Bayer lawyers have said the chemical maker will set aside $8 billion to resolve the current cases and reserve another $2 billion for future claims. They better reserve more than that. Roundup has been blamed for ailments including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which can take years to be diagnosed. Bayer declined to comment on the number of any terms under negotiation. And with this announcement, their stocks are going up and this is great. Okay, bottom line, Roundup causes cancer. Now, all of this litigation is going to be specific to people that were using Roundup. It may be splashed on them, or they inhaled the fumes, they weren't protected with the proper equipment, and they now have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or some other type of cancer. Okay, if using this product is giving people cancer, how do you really, really feel about eating it every single day? Okay? We just talked about this yesterday with the GMO video, talking about how the food is genetically engineered so that you can spray Roundup on it year-round and then harvest it and eat it, or give it to the cattle or any of the other animals that we eat, and then we eat them and get exposed to the glyphosate. One way or another, it's in our system. And Roundup is a huge, huge issue. All right. More food for thought there. So another thing that everybody's freaking out about right now is coronavirus. Okay, coronavirus coming out of China, the Wuhan area, where they had these farmers markets where there's animals everywhere. And coronavirus is a virus that can jump from animals to humans, but it's nothing new. Okay, there was a big outbreak of a more virulent or a stronger version of coronavirus back in the early 2000s in Hong Kong and other places. And so there is a patent that already exists for severe acute respiratory syndrome of the coronavirus, SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. This was established back in 2003, right? An outbreak of a virulent respiratory virus, now known as severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, was identified in Hong Kong, China, and a growing number of countries around the world in 2003. This invention relates to nucleic acid and proteins from the SARS coronavirus. These acids and proteins can be used in preparation and manufacture of vaccine formulations, diagnostic reagents, kits, etc. So the groundwork has already been laid for a vaccine for coronavirus. Now that a coronavirus is rapidly spreading, the media gets to jump on it. They just got some fantastic funding to jump in and start creating a virus. And then stocks soar again, and here we go. You just swing over to health on Google News, and every article, 30 million people are restricted and quarantined for as the coronavirus death toll rises. We've got cases in the United States. There's cases in other countries. It goes on and on and on. They're talking about flu-related deaths. So it's just so much fear that they can keep you guys scared. They can keep us all scared. Get your vaccines, get your vaccines. Why are you even worried about coronavirus when influenza is running wild in the United States, killing thousands? Like, this is all they need to keep everybody in line. I mean, look at this. How fast can biotech come up with a vaccine for the latest outbreak? Pretty quick, since it's pretty much already been done for over a decade. So they're going to get funding. This is going to be a big deal. Oh, Inovio's stock soars after receiving a grant to develop a coronavirus vaccine. What a coincidence. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Connect the dots, guys. Just last month, the FDA approved the Ebola virus. 5 days later, every article is like, why you need the Ebola vaccine. So just understand that no matter, and I mean, here's another thing. There's no shortage of like visuals that they're trying to pull to keep you scared. But this one I think is really interesting when they put these people in these isolation chambers, and the visual is very powerful because it brings people back to the days of polio with the iron lung, and which was also a man-made disease. Again, going back to the health of the person. It's the terrain. You are the terrain, and it's the health of the terrain that's going to establish whether you are susceptible to these diseases or not. And if you look at the actual data of those who are dying, the deaths are among the very elderly or those that already have some type of comorbidity, right? An existing complication or disease already on top of the coronavirus, weakening them, and then they're susceptible to death. And so then they hype up, an article today about the first healthy patient that died. Well, what is healthy? And what was the interventions that were used before his death? Were they using fever reducers like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, aspirin, any of those things? They're going to weaken your immune system and make you more susceptible to death. Did a video on that just a few days ago. Flu, fever, death. If you haven't seen that one, go look it up. But anyway, all of the media hype around this, it's not just coronavirus. You'll see headlines about measles outbreaks still. You're seeing headlines about mumps outbreaks still. And of course, if you read through them, you're going to see, they were already vaccinated, especially the mumps. So they're keeping this headline news because trying to steer us away from the fact that vaccines are extremely dangerous, and this data is actually being proven, and it's not misinformation, so they got to keep you scared. And it's going beyond just these headlines. More and more entertainment is focusing on these pandemics, right? We're going to have a pandemic. They're forecasting pandemics because they know how to implement one and get it going. So here we are in the next pandemic, and now Netflix just launches a documentary series that's 6 episodes long about pandemics and how the anti-vaxxers are a big threat, and we're going to trigger pandemics across the world. It's a bunch of fear. It's a bunch of BS. Again, your best strategy for wellness through any pandemic is a solid immune system, which will only happen through proper nutrition, comprehensive nutrition, okay, whole food nutrition, and avoiding toxins. You need to be healthy and strong and ready to take this on. And when you do get sick, be sick. Stop trying to interfere with antivirals, antibacteria, antibiotics, and anti-fever and anti-inflammatories. Let your body do the work. Stay hydrated, fast, and arm yourself with vitamin C and vitamin D. Those are essential to battle respiratory infection. Got it? Good. All right, so let's move on to some of the other headlines. We've got sunscreen study raises eyebrows, but doctors say keep using it. Of course they do. So what is the study talking about? How these horrible chemicals, avobenzone, homosalate, actosalate, ostocrylene, oxybenzone, all of these toxins that are designed to try to block UVB and UVA rays actually absorb through the skin quite rapidly and enter your bloodstream, and they stay with you for days. And this is very toxic. This is actually contributing to cancer. And so what do they say? The ingredients that were in the study have been around for a long time. There's really never been any evidence that they're toxic, which is a lie. So we believe that the risks of sunscreen outweigh the potential, or the benefits of sunscreen outweigh the potential risks. It sounds just like any other industry, right? It's a $1 billion industry. So they say use it anyway. And here's the best piece of advice actually from this article. If you're afraid of the chemicals, move over to a mineral-based sunscreen using zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. That is actually a decent idea, but honestly, you really don't need any of that if you're actually just being smart and limiting your sun exposure, utilizing clothing, hats, things like that, and then letting your body actually tell you, okay, I've had enough. When you start getting pink and burning, the body's saying, all right, we've absorbed the vitamin D that we need from the sun. Let's go find some shade or protection. And so just limit your time. Go out, have some fun, go back into the shade. Go out, have some fun, go back into the shade. It's the amount of sun that's a big deal. So I really liked this other article that I found. The website's CrossFit Brit, but reading through it, really good content. They link a pretty good video from another YouTuber that talks about the health benefits of the sun and also the risks of the sun. So sun exposure on bare skin causes our bodies to generate vitamin D. I think we all know that, but do we know how important it is? This is the key. And vitamin D is something 80% or more of us, if not everybody nowadays, is lacking. We're all low in vitamin D, and that's actually hurting us. It's hurting our immune system. We're more prone to infection, like all these people getting sick from these viruses spreading. And it causes all kinds of other issues throughout the body. So a critically important nutrient is vitamin D, which the body gets best from direct sunlight. A lack of vitamin D has been associated with falls, fractures, cancer, autoimmune dysfunction, cardiovascular disease, and hypertension. Unfortunately, according to estimates, half of all people around the world are deficient in vitamin D. I guarantee it's more than that. And therefore are at increased risk for serious potential fatal conditions. So moderate and natural exposure to the sun is incredibly important for our health. And that's the key, is moderate exposure. Whatever you yourself can handle, and everybody's different. And everybody that has different melanin levels in their skin are going to have different times of exposure that are appropriate for them. Okay, the darker your skin, the less damage the rays can do to you. It filters more of those UV rays through the melanin pigments in your skin. The lighter you are, the less amount, but you still need to get out in the sun. You still need to get that vitamin D absorption naturally. It's the most bioavailable version of it. It's made from our hormones. So here's one of the greatest lines. Obviously, overexposure to the sun or from that of tanning beds is not a good idea and can be the cause of photoaging and DNA damage that can lead to cancer. But do get moderate sun exposure and every day if possible. So how do we get overexposed to the sun? By wearing sunscreen. And this couldn't be more true. So wearing sunscreen is giving you this false sense of protection because it's not actually blocking the right rays. It's doing a great job of blocking UVB rays, which you actually need, and those are the rays that you're going to convert to vitamin D. You're blocking other, I think it's UVA, which are also dangerous, but again, you need a moderate amount of sunlight on your skin. So over the decades, sunscreen usage has only gone up like crazy. We use more sunscreen than ever, okay? So what do the skin cancer outcomes look like? Well, the more we've been using sunscreen, skin cancer has just gone up and up and up. In fact, over the past few decades, skin cancer has increased over 3,000%. So how's that sunscreen working out for us? not great. Okay, skin cancer rates continue to climb. It doesn't matter. As the SPF got stronger and we continue to use more and more, skin cancer rates continue to skyrocket. And this is just looking at melanoma. Okay, we're not even considering the basal and squamous carcinoma cells that are even more common and happen to almost everybody nowadays. So the sun is our friend, guys, and it's also responsible for so many other things. But just to point you in the direction of information, go out and read how important getting vitamin D from the sun is. If you don't know who Rhonda Patrick is, she's a fantastic researcher, and she does some really great information about epigenetics, about the immune system, about hormone production, and how important vitamin D is for everything. So how do we make sure, how do we get the most of the sun safely? Get enough vitamin D. First of all, this is almost a chicken and egg situation, but adequate levels of vitamin D have been shown to protect the skin against sun damage. So eat foods that contain lycopene found in tomatoes. In fact, you're actually better off eating a wide variety of vegetables, especially from all the color spectrums, right? The purples, the yellows, the reds, the oranges, the greens, because all of those phytonutrients are the plant's own defense from the sun, from the UV rays, from the radiation damage that can come from the sun. The plant has their own mechanisms of protection, and we eat those and we can benefit from that as well internally. Cut down on omega-6s for sure. Increase omega-3 fatty acids. Studies show that people with higher levels of DHA and EPA had the least cutaneous P53 expressions, which had been linked to melanoma. Eat plenty of saturated fat. That's extremely important for so many reasons. But there's another study that showed diet higher in saturated fat was protective, whereas a diet high in polyunsaturated fats were not. It goes on and on and on. So great information here. And we'll just continue on. All right. So why is so many people deficient in vitamin D? Well, this ties into geoengineering. And if you don't think this is happening, please just look up every single day. They have been aerosol spraying the skies for decades. Okay, the patents for geoengineering go back all the way back to 1920. We've been doing this forever. And they've been putting out articles about geoengineering forever. And it's always, well, we're thinking about doing it. We're going to go for it. We think we're going to spray sulfur in the sky. Yeah, we're going to pollute the skies, but it's worth it. We need to dim the sun. We need to dim the rays of the sun, and we're going to combat global warming, right? So the very optimistic new argument for dimming the sky. Geoengineering won't hurt a bit, at least compared with climate change, and it deserves serious investigation, like we're not doing it. We've been doing it forever, okay? There's so many of these articles you can just go find. You search geoengineering, search dimming the sun. Dimming the sun wouldn't be that bad. And David Keith is the face of this initiative that the mainstream media uses to put out there, right? So the latest article that came out today is, should we fiddle with the Earth's thermostat? This man might know how, and they always use this guy. And if you go, again, over to the Fear versus Freedom channel, and there's a few things you should go look at. Look at the skin playlist, our skin, and really understand the importance of the sun and our skin and how detrimental sunscreen can be to us. Look at the geoengineering playlist. Many of the documents have been following David Keith and his work, and again, he's just the front man for this. These initiatives have been going on for decades, and we're all paying a price. And not only is what they're spraying up there highly toxic and neurologically toxic to us, they are dimming the sun. And we are having less of the healthy rays reaching us. Of course, the radiation goes right through that. We're getting the highest rates of cosmic rays and gamma rays and X-ray than we've ever had, because guess what? We are in solar minimum. We are headed into grand solar minimum. The geomagnetic shield that protects our Earth is at its weakest. So is the sun's magnetic field that also protects us beyond our galaxy. You got to think bigger than immediately around us. There's so many things that impact us at a universal level. Okay? Climate change is going to happen. Whether we're driving a gas or electric vehicle, it doesn't matter. Climate change is happening because of the cycles of the solar system, because of the solar cycles, the Earth's catastrophe cycle. It's going to happen. You can't do anything about it. You can't stop climate change. Okay? You act as if the Earth has always been how it is today. It hasn't. It changes. The magnetic poles shift. We're going through that as well. So I don't care what you try to do by polluting the skies, you're only hurting us and you're not going to stop climate change. So learn about this if you don't know about it. And let's see. Yeah, vitamin D for the flu, right? The real reason flu hits in the winter is because we're not getting the exposure to vitamin D that we need. Read some of these articles. But let's talk about pandemics, right? Everyone's talking about how the next pandemic is coming. Millions of people are going to die. That actually could happen if we keep pumping people full of drugs during these epidemics. Again, just be sick, stay home, watch the symptoms, okay? If you're able to be cognizant and cognitive and interact, you're okay. If you're out and you're lethargic and you can't move, yeah, you probably should get some attention. But if you can just get through the sickness, let your body fight, build up your immune system, you're going to be okay. Do not intervene with fever reducers, anti-inflammatory drugs, pain relief. All of that shit is going to kill you. It literally will. That is what happened with the flu pandemic in 1918 to 1919, when millions of people literally died from the flu. If you look back at what actually happened, why was the fatality rate so high? The high case fatality rate, especially among young adults during the 1918 and 1919 influenza pandemic, is incompletely understood. Although the late deaths showed bacterial pneumonia, early death exhibited extremely wet, sometimes hemorrhagic lungs. Why would that be? The hypothesis presented herein is that aspirin contributed to the incidence and severity of the viral pathology, the bacterial infection, and death. So this flu was spreading. Aspirin was relatively new, and so people were using it like crazy. Physicians of that day were unaware of the regimens that 8 to 31 grams per day of aspirin, 8 to 31 grams a day, okay? Holy crap. Produced levels associated with hyperventilation and pulmonary edema in 33% and 3% of recipients respectively. Pulmonary edema was found at autopsy in 46% of the 26 salicylate intoxicated adults. Experimentally, salicylates increase lung fluid and protein levels and impair mucociliary clearance. 1918, the U.S. Surgeon General, the U.S. Navy, and the Journal of American Medical Association recommended the use of aspirin just before the October death spike. So they said, we got it. We're going to treat this with aspirin. They start doing that, and the deaths just skyrocket. Go read this study. Okay. Salicylates and the pandemic influenza mortality. History just continues to repeat itself over and over again. We just bring out a new drug, and then a new drug, and then a new drug. And we use them until we realize we've been killing millions of people, and then we try and find something else. Stop using drugs. Focus on nutrition. Here's a great study. Vitamin D deficiency contributes directly to the acute respiratory distress syndrome. This is tied to those flu deaths. Okay? Vitamin D deficiency has been implicated as a pathogenic factor in sepsis and intensive therapy unit mortality. but has not been assessed as a risk factor for acute respiratory disease syndrome. Causality of this association has never been demonstrated. Findings: vitamin D deficiency was ubiquitous in patients with acute respiratory distress syndrome and present in the vast majority of patients at risk of developing acute respiratory distress syndrome following oesophageectomy. In murine model of the enterocheal and lipopolysaccharide challenge, dietary-induced vitamin D deficiency resulted in an exaggerated alveolar inflammation, epithelial damage, and hypoxia. Vitamin D has trophic effects on primary human alveolar epithelial cells affecting greater than 600 genes. In clinical setting, pharmacological repletion of vitamin D prior to oesophageectomy reduced the observed changes in vivo measurements of alveolar capillary damages seen in deficient patients. Conclusion: vitamin D deficiency is common in people who develop acute respiratory distress syndrome. This deficiency of vitamin D appears to contribute to the development of the condition, and approaches to correct vitamin D deficiency in patients at risk of acute respiratory distress syndrome should be developed. Look, vitamin D is extremely important. Vitamin C is extremely important. They all are. Vitamin D, vitamin B, the whole B complex, all of it. Just, you gotta focus on nutrient-rich foods, healthy, saturated fats with bioavailable vitamins, right? Sardines are great. They have vitamin A, they have vitamin D, they have the omega-3s. Fantastic. Fish oils are also good. Leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, pasture-raised eggs, grass-fed meat, fatty hamburger. All of this thing is going to help you have a healthy immune system. You got to stay away from the sugars, the simple refined carbs. Just stay healthy, and you don't need these drugs, and you don't have to fear the media's headlines that are trying to keep you super scared. They're doing a good job. People are going, what do I do? What do I do? Oh my gosh, this virus, I can't go anywhere. We can't do anything because everyone's going to die. Focus on you. Number one, focus on your food. Food is medicine. Your health begins in your gut. Stop looking for the magic pill or injection to protect you, because God armed you with everything you need as long as you respect that body and give it the tools it needs to take on the fight. So that's it for today. Just a few things. Get out there and enjoy your life and have an awesome weekend. Love you guys.